A disastrous week for Netflix.
The stock down nearly 70% this year.
Sentiment has deteriorated significantly.
The margins were very, very disappointing.
Boy, does the pendulum seem to be swinging the other way.
Subscriber losses, streaming competition, price hikes, adding an ad business.
What you just watched is the single most valuable thing that can happen to an investor. Wall Street panicking about a great business and causing it to go on sale. I'm Austin Bowen. I'm an analyst for Phil Town, and today I'm going to walk you through one of the most teachable investments I've ever been a part of, Netflix, from 2022 to 2025. Because here's the punchline up front. To nail this one, you didn't need a Bloomberg terminal, you don't need a finance degree, you didn't need an army of analysts. You needed two things: a little bit of knowledge about how to value a business and to be a paying Netflix subscriber. That's it. Let me show you. So before we touch a single number, we start where Buffett always starts, your circle of competence. The idea is simple. Only invest in businesses that you actually understand. You don't get rewarded for being smart about everything. You get rewarded for being honest about what you do understand and not venturing beyond that circle. Now, the size of your circle doesn't really matter. What matters is knowing where the edge of it is. And it turns out millions of us have a circle of competence we don't even realize that we have, because we live it every single day as customers. That's the whole game today. And Netflix was dead center in my circle. My history of Netflix goes back 2 decades. I was a customer back when I was in high school when Netflix mailed you actual DVDs in those little red envelopes. You'd pick your movies online, they'd show up in the mailbox, you'd watch them, you'd send them back, and then the next one would arrive. That was the company. And then in 2007, Netflix launched streaming. And for 15 years, Netflix became one of Wall Street's just rocket ship stocks. It was a darling growth stock. It went up and to the right almost no matter what. And I'll be honest, for most of that 15 years, it didn't meet the fundamentals that we look for as Rule 1 Buffett-style investors. It was a great story, but the numbers weren't there yet. And then around 2020, 2 things really started to happen at the same time. On one hand, the business became exactly what we want. Netflix was suddenly throwing off billions of dollars in actual earnings. They had really high return on invested capital, meaning that every dollar they put into the business came back to be a lot more. They were carrying very, very little debt. That's the profile of a wonderful business. This is Buffett 101. But on the other hand, the story Wall Street told had flipped negative. The narrative became Netflix is maxed out, the US is saturated, growth is dead. And so the stock started sliding, and it slid from about $600 a share down to around $400 a share in late 2021. And then bam, first quarter of 2022, for the first time in roughly 10 years, Netflix lost subscribers. And the media did what the media loves to do. They just piled into that narrative. All right, Netflix is doomed. The part almost nobody on TV mentioned was that same quarter that they had a subscriber miss, they also shut down all of their service in Russia as protest against the invasion in Ukraine. They walked away from hundreds of thousands of subscribers on the principle of protesting the war. You strip that out, and there was no subscriber loss at all. The miss was largely a decision by the company that they chose to make. But the headline was written, stock kept falling, and eventually it fell down about 70% from its high, and it was sitting at about $180 a share. So the question the whole market was asking was, is Netflix broken? And the answer, if you actually understood the business, it's pretty simple. Everybody over 30 in the US has lived this transition from the cable bundle to streaming. And I want you to ask yourself one honest question. Would you ever go back to a cable bundle? back to not being able to watch what you want to watch when you want to watch it, back to ad breaks every 10 minutes interrupting your show, back to waiting a full week between episodes. Other streaming companies, by the way, still do that today. They only produce enough content to fill a couple of Sunday night spots or a once a week spot. And I can tell you, before Netflix, it sucked. Nobody is ever going to go back or volunteer to go back to a world before Netflix. The thing that actually unlocked all of this wasn't some marketing genius either. It was infrastructure. Wi-Fi in our homes suddenly got fast enough to stream on every TV in the house. The second that happened, a brand new option existed that had never existed before. What if I, instead of paying for a cable bundle, I just pay for internet and skip the bundle entirely? When Netflix launched Stream back in 2007, it kicked off this shift in how the US consumed content, and the world has really never looked back. So in 2022, with Netflix sitting at 220 million subscribers, all Wall Street could ask was, are we maxed out? Maybe in the US we are, but here's the thing that everybody kept forgetting. It's a big world. And Netflix is a global company. In 2022, only about 20% of households worldwide had gotten off the cable bundle. In a lot of countries, you didn't even have the option of getting off of a bundle. In some countries, they even charged you extra while you were on the bundle to watch Netflix. And so Wall Street was looking at this saturated US market and declaring that the whole game was over. We were looking at the other 80% of this planet. Why was this so easy for us to see? Because we could see the next big infrastructure unlock coming. The same way that fast, affordable Wi-Fi was unlocked in the US, something like Starlink, high-speed internet beamed to any place on Earth with high-speed broadband, all of a sudden we could see billions of people around the world were about to get a genuine alternative to the cable bundle. And when a first-time streamer anywhere on Earth goes to pick up their first streaming service, who do you think they reach for? The brand they already know. And the data backs this up. Roughly 50% of first-time streamers choose Netflix first. Netflix also has the lowest churn of any streaming company by a mile, which is wild because they make it extremely easy to cancel. People sign up first, they don't leave. That's not a saturated business. That was a global business in the early innings. So we understand the business and we understand why the long-term story is intact. Now the next question, what protects Netflix from competition? Two things. First, everybody knows the brand. Netflix was the first to do it. They've got the brand moat. The second thing is Netflix has this wonderful network moat, as we call it in Rule 1. And it's a bit of a flywheel if you think about that. So start off with Netflix has the most subscribers, which means that Netflix makes the most money, which means that Netflix has the most that they can spend on making new content and winning new talent, which means that Netflix has really good stuff that wins awards. And as they do all those things, it drives more subscribers, which restarts this cycle. Every time the cycle turns, their competitive advantage gets stronger. To take them on, you have to match them in the amount of spend and content they're doing, but you can't do that if you don't have enough money, and you can't do that if you don't have enough subscribers. The math doesn't work. So as Netflix continues to grow, their moat just continues to widen and widen and widen. Next, we want to look at the people that are running it, all right? Management is important. This was a founder-led company. Reed Hastings, the guy had already pulled off the hardest moves in the industry. He'd transitioned the business from mailing DVDs to streaming before streaming was a thing. The entire business model had to shift. He then decided that they were going to get into their own content production and make everything from scratch instead of leasing everybody else's. That was an entirely new business they had to learn that was capital intensive. So now compare this track record over the years of the crisis in 2022. They had to build an ad-supported tier? Really? Advertisers were foaming at the mouth to air their ads on Netflix because of the viewership. Oh, they were gonna raise prices a little? I mean, Netflix's prices compared to a cable bundle are dirt cheap. The value proposition is amazing. They were gonna crack down on password sharing. Yeah, that was annoying, but are you really gonna be the lone friend in your friend group that can't have an opinion on the latest season of Drive to Survive? After everything this management team had already navigated, these were low bars to overcome. These were not bet the company decisions. They were easy ones. But here's Wall Street, acting like they know better, moving like a little herd of sheep, each one following the sheep in front of it. Nobody once stopped to think about the long term. And that right there, that is the single biggest advantage that you and I have as individual investors. We don't lose our jobs because our portfolio is down 1/4 while our peers are up. But in Wall Street, if you're a pro, that does. And that fear creates all kinds of short-term incentives. And so the world looks at these folks as professionals. Yeah, they're professionals, all right. They're professionals at managing career risk and at convincing normal people like you and me that you can't possibly do this without them. So now the last question, and it's the one that actually determines whether you make money. What do we pay for this business? Here's what we were looking at. We had a company that was earning roughly $5 to $6 billion a year. Historically, they had grown that number above 20% per year. And with the stock down at $180, it had about an $80 billion market cap. So we ran what's called a margin of safety analysis, or an MOS. I'm not going to teach you the full method here, but if you want to learn how to do it yourself, just read Phil's books or come to one of our workshops, and we'll walk you through it step by step. So we ran the numbers and we estimated that Netflix was worth roughly $600 a share, which meant that our margin of safety buy price was a 50% discount, or about $300 a share. And the stock was sitting at $180, massively on sale. Here's the kicker. It's the stress test. If Netflix's growth had slowed from 20+% all the way to about 10%, we would have still been buying this company at an undervalued price. The only scenario where this wasn't a good deal was if these Wall Street pundits were right and Netflix grew at literally nothing. No growth at all ever again. We didn't think that was even in the realm of possibility. So this was a no-brainer for us. So what happened? The ad tier launched, massive success. They made password shares start paying, worked way better than the skeptics ever imagined. Subscriber growth re-accelerated, earnings climbed. The stock that everyone called a sell down at 180 made all-time highs, and by 2025 was sitting at $1,500 a share, 8 times the price that it was at in 2022. Because here's the thing, when a stock starts taking off, that Wall Street herd of sheep that I was telling you about was running from the exit, they all start piling back in as soon as it starts going up because they don't want to lose to their peer group. Every single thing that made Netflix a great investment was sitting in plain sight. If you understood the business because you lived it as a customer, the long-term story was obviously intact. Nobody's going back to cable. The rest of the world was going to follow the United States over the past decade and slowly dump the cable bucket, which meant the moat was going to continue to widen and widen, and management had already done the hard part. The price was a gift handed to you by a panicked Wall Street. And that is rule 1 investing. You don't need to be smarter than Wall Street. You just need to understand how Wall Street behaves and understand if you have a wonderful business and you have the patience to wait and buy it when everybody's running from the exits, you can make a lot of money. If you want to run these numbers yourself, start with Phil's books or come join us at a Rule 1 workshop. We spend 3 days analyzing hundreds of student-selected companies, helping you understand if your company that you chose is wonderful, if it's on sale. We also give the students in our workshops a sneak peek session into Phil's Portfolio Manager Live podcast. That's with me, Phil, and the team. We break down exactly what we're researching and why. And right now, the SaaSpocalypse has definitely made the class fun these past couple of months. If you want to see more breakdowns of companies that we have publicly invested in, I want you to like this video, I want you to subscribe, and in the comment section, go ahead and tell me what breakdown you want me to run through next. I'll see you on the next one. Take care.